with Matt Pinfield. Today's guest, Nick Hexum of 311. Welcome to In a Lonely Place. It's Matt Pinfield, and now we're actually in the studio in Studio City, which we will probably bounce in and out of here, but it's great when we can do it safely with social distance. You know, I started this show in my living room. We named it after the Humphrey Bogart movie from the 50s, the Smithereens, the New Order song. I mean, we just thought it was a great name. And it's been quite the crazy year or so now. So since the pandemic is where things aren't really getting better at this period of time, we're practicing social, safe distance. And I'm really excited about my guests because I've been friends with this band and been an early supporter of theirs from the very beginning. I remember them playing them on the radio in Asbury Park, New Jersey, this radio station WHTG, and they would come through and be packed out every show. I remember right from the very beginning because we banged their debut album music or their debut album on Capricorn. I mean, you know, anyway, I want to introduce you to Nick Hexum. Nick is with me right now. Nick, great to see you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. And thanks for keeping rock and roll alive. Thanks for your encyclopedic knowledge. And thanks for the early support, man. That's a fond memory because I was used to going into radio stations where they didn't know much about us and they would be like, it says you're from Omaha but you like knew about us and deep cuts from the album. Yeah. And so it really left an impression when I met you in Jersey, right? Where
Jersey Shore in like Asbury Park area, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that was 27 years ago. That's pretty cool.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Going back, it's incredible. Nick, how's it been for you and the guys? I mean, you've managed to keep busy. And the great thing is you always serve your fans in such a great way. I mean, recently you did the live stream on the 311 stream system of music, which was so great to see that album done in its entirety. I mean, I was so excited about it because I love that record, of course, and I have fond memories of your early shows back then coming through town. Tell me, I mean, I know that we're actually coming up any day now is the one for Grassroots, the second album on Capricorn, and then you're going to do another one on the 11th.
Yeah, we call it
January.
The 311th. So we had November 11th, and now the second album will play Grassroots on December, right? November, and then December, and then January 11th we'll play our self-titled album. We call the Blue Album.
Yeah, which is great.
I mean, it was great to get to rock, and but I got to give a shout out to our crew because they created this virtual reality. Well, I guess they call it augmented reality, but they painted the walls of our studio white so they could put projections on. And then they have a special technology that kind of sews the projection into the video, which I guess it was the same technology they use on Mandalorian with the augmented reality. And then they created all these cool virtual environments. Some are like video game look, some like space look, imageries from our album. And so it was cool to just kind of get into the future with this new technology and make it just a visceral rockin' performance, but also with tons of eye candy to keep it interesting.
Was it fun to play all those songs again, some of the tracks that you've been done in a little while?
Yeah, because I hadn't had that really hard rocking experience for so long, but you know, your debut album is usually like a kind of a greatest hits of all your best ideas up to that point, because it's like, that's why usually debut albums are really strong for people. So, but they were such high energy songs. Like we were going for it, headbanging, jumping around, and there's a lot on our second album too, but then it's much more of an up and down roller coaster with like, you know, chill out songs on Grassroots, like 1, 2, 3 is the kind of the way it winds up in like a spacey reggae kind of thing.
Yeah, which is great. It's really cool. Now you've also been during this period of time, you know, having to deal. I mean, you all have families right now too. So how's that been? I mean, I know it means you don't see each other unless you guys are actually playing together.
Yeah.
Has it been homeschooling and things like that with the kids?
Yeah. I mean, first to go from, we barely got 311 day finished right before the the whole lockdown started. So that was a bittersweet experience to have our first 311 day that was 3 nights, that we've ever expanded to 3 nights before. And then to go home and like, okay, everything's canceled, school's canceled. Like it was just this, it was almost like a snow day that we used to have in Omaha, where all of a sudden, what you had planned is totally off. And then just to worry about, okay, getting food and like it was such a kind of an isolating experience. I could imagine for, single people that were isolating by themselves, it could be very much of a lonely place,
Yeah, which was me at the time.
Yeah. Right. So, fortunately I was with my wife and 3 kids, and I call it like a little house on the prairie with iPads kind of existence, because it's like we're together all the time. The dad leaves once a week to get food. And other than that, so it was just a very different section of life. And then after a couple weeks of that, we're like, man, people are really hurting. There's so much anxiety. So we decided we wanted to do what we called the Do Stay Home sessions. So on my Instagram, I recorded some covers, me singing songs with my daughters. We did Hallelujah. We did Bob Marley, 3 Little Birds, but I say 3 Little Girls because it's got my 3 little girls splashing around in the creek as I was singing that song, and a few other different covers. And it was like, just wanted to, spread a little uplift, let people know that, other people are going through hard times as well. And there's, even if you can't feel that connection because of the forced isolation, that, people are going through similar things. And it's been a really tough time for the whole world. And it's nice to be emerging from it a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. But, love will conquer all in the end, and sanity and reason. And so, that's been my experience. But now in this, then we had the summer off, but now our second year of school, we've kind of really gotten in a good groove with the distance learning. So, that's basically been all my time, has been, keeping the kids on track and helping out with the learning, and just trying to have a lot of different special times of, hiking and playing outside. And we have a pool, so it was just swimming sometimes like twice a day, and then we crank music, because I live way out far from people. So we've got this massive sound system just blasting current hits that the kids like, but also educating them on these type of albums that we're going to talk about today.
That's amazing. That's great. What kind of system do you have? Is it like a...
It's hooked in through Sonos, Sonance. It's this outdoor speakers that, and it has this big like mushroom that you bury in the ground for a subwoofer. And there's like 6 or 8 speakers around the pool pointing in with these little kind of cannons coming off the ground. So like, it's like being in a headphone. Yeah, it's Topanga, so there's like nobody cares about loud rock and roll, and I'm pretty far away from people anyway. Yeah, and we have this one hippie lady neighbor, and she's like, "I just love it when you guys play music, and I hear you splashing around. Please turn it up."
Oh, that's great. That's the best kind of neighbor to have. It's usually the opposite of what you hear, right?
Yeah.
In other places.
Yeah, I used to live packed into the Hollywood Hills next to people, and I couldn't turn it up. So it's nice.
That is great. Let's talk about the drive-in shows that you guys have done too, because I know. You did Phoenix. I think was the other one Ventura, or it was like, Well, because I know. Tell me about that experience, because that's something that's brand new. Your audience. You've always fed off the audience's energy, because your audience is, by the way, is just so committed. Tell me about what those experiences were like.
Well, I think I was pleasantly surprised by how much of a fun show it was, because I think sometimes if your expectations get too high, then, I was expecting it to be different, because knowing there was going to be that distance. And then once I just kind of recalibrated to be like, okay, they're there, they're just farther away. And we was in the round. So I made a point to keep working all 4 sides of the stage, and like letting people know, I know you're here. And then I also made some special, we have crowd participation when we do the song Freeze Time, and everybody screams and throws their hands up in the air when we do that like drop in the chorus. I was like, for this one, everybody honk your horns when we do that for that moment. And so that everybody loved doing, a unique kind of crowd participation thing. But it's way better than nothing. You know what I mean? The regular live rock and roll will never die. It's always such a special experience, but now as sort of a placeholder to get us through until regular shows come back, doing the streaming and the drive-in shows is way better than nothing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And your fans are really excited about that.
Yeah.
Does it blow your mind still, Nick, when you see how it's become such a multi-generational audience for 311?
Yeah.
When I go to your shows, if I'm, I'm just talking about a few years back when I came to the show in New Jersey, and I'm just as I'm coming up on that property there, where it's like it used to be called the Garden State Arts Center, now it's called the PNC Bank. Everything's got a third party sponsor now. Everybody's got a business name on it. But I loved what I witnessed was the age difference. I mean, there were young kids, there were teenage kids, and there were people that have been with you from the beginning. So I just saw such a great multi-generational thing happening where people are passing it on and becoming huge fans. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I mean, to me, having that multi-generational shared music, kind of like when I used to go to Grateful Dead shows and I would see like the old timers and then also people my age when this was in like the early 90s and stuff, like, wow, this is such a diverse crew. You would see like, preppy guys and stoners and old school, like tripping old, I just love seeing a lot of diversity. And so now to hear, I do these like cameos for people's kids where I'll sing them like a little birthday song, and to hear how often it is that like this is for my son. He just learned, all mixed up on guitar, and just to kind of share my experience with them about what music means to me. It's very heartwarming to hear about, the multi-generational experience that's happening. And, that to me, all of my favorite bonding things with my kids, like I said, cranking music in the pool and having like impromptu dance parties like that. Music is such an essential service for bonding. That's why it was invented. They say 100,000 years ago, it started with just rhythmic things and drums, and then they added melody about 50,000 years ago. But that's in our DNA to have that kind of a thing. And so it was sad when music was sort of being, discarded, or the importance was being downplayed for a little while there with the collapse of the music business and stuff. But it's like, it's such an essential part of our DNA that it's just great to be able to do it for a living.
Yeah. Couldn't live without it. I'm very grateful that I've been able to turn it into a career after all these years. I'm still doing it. And God, it's going to be 37 years in radio in January and 28 in television. So it's pretty amazing being around that long, but it's great. Let's talk about the 311 day that you did have, because you expanded it, like you said, to 3 days. Tell me how you go about as a band breaking down what you're going to do each day, because it's amazing the undertaking of what I've seen you do. Because I've seen the other days when it's 2 days, you know what I mean? And expanding to 3. Tell me, just walk me through that, how you guys decide on what you're going to do and the sets and everything.
Well, first we realized, okay, since we have 3 days, we can make it into triple digits for the first time. So we were like, we're going to hit 100 songs over the 3 nights. So it's the first time that we ever did that. And then, we just look at other lists from previous event shows, because one year we have 311 Day, which was this year, and the following year we usually have a cruise. Yeah. So those are our two main events, our spring events. Now cruises are a little uncertain for the future, so we fortunately can't book one for this next spring. But so we would look back at the other event shows, like, all right, what's a rarity we can give them that they haven't heard in a really long time, and dusting off some songs that actually find songs that we never played before, and then to come up with a few covers. I think we had one cover per night.
And And what did you do this time on this one?
Bob Marley, Lively Up Yourself, which was something that we did back in Omaha in the year 1990 when we'd play at the Howard Street Tavern, and we made it like heavy,
Yeah.
like halftime, like heavy rock. And what was Waiting on a Friend, where we had, did that Stone song with a montage of us palling around our people in our fan base, showing affection. So it was super emotional to see the bonding that, occurs because of our band and just through music in general. And so it was kind of an ode to friendship that was really emotional. In the past, we did How I Wish You Were Here, the Pink Floyd song. And we had kind of a montage of, fallen people that had passed away, from our musical heroes, like, Adam Yauch and, different singers, Chester, and people that had passed away. And then also people within our fan base that were widely known. And my half brother passed away from an overdose about 4 years ago. So he was there in the montage. So it was just really super emotional, but just planning these special things in 311 Day that we know they've never seen before, because it's like a worldwide debut. And then also just giving the deeper cuts. But then there's going to be a few part-time fans that want to hear Amber, but it's these deep dive shows will really focus on the rare stuff and making sure it's worth, because people come from Australia and Europe and just Japan. This is like, people have to go through a lot to get to 311 Days. So we want to make sure it's like totally worth it.
I love that. And with Enlarge the Show Detail and the way you did that series too, and the last film is another, a way showing expression of your love for your fans and their love for the band as well. I think that, not every band can do that and has that kind of incredible relationship with the fan base.
The word unity was actually the original name of the band when it was earlier version, which was with me and Tim and Chad, was called Unity. And just that word, unity of recognizing that bond and our commonality, looking for the similarities between people and feeling that connection. That's always been like a kind of a key word for us. It's an anthemic song for us. And it's just a sort of and the world needs more unity than ever right now. It's something. So, we stay dedicated to that, and that's what, it's nice to have kind of an underlying sense of purpose to what we're trying to do in our band.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes out in the songs as well. The cruise, obviously your fans are going to miss the cruise this coming year, but talk to me about when you first started doing the 311 cruise. Did you have a hit list of artists that you wanted to play with that were friends or people that you liked? And how did that come about? And who ended up on those cruises?
Oh man, I'm going to have trouble remembering, but first of all, just the way, in the early days, they would have these like blues cruises. And for some reason, like blues music with cruising was the kind of the way that it started. And then this promoter, Sixth Man, they would like blues and booze cruises. And, they would go out with blues artists. And then Sixth Man, the promoter, offered it to us, and they were like, we think it's going to be perfect for your fan base. And, we were interested, but a little skeptical. And I'm glad we took the plunge, because it's just, everybody kept saying, this is the best vacation I've had, just because there's so many like-minded people. There's always something to do on the cruise, a different, contest, belly flop contest 1 minute, a comedian's going on elsewhere, and cool, like reggae rock bands. We've had Dirty Heads, Revolution, Fishbone. Just so many of our
friends and people that you like,
and bands that we love to see that have commonality with our fan base. So I'll look forward to when we can do those again.
Yeah, that's good. And you guys do multiple sets too, which is why it's so much fun for your fans as well.
The Sail Away set is so fun, because as soon as we congratulations, we're all on vacation now, and everybody just goes crazy, and it's just people can blow off steam.
Yeah.
Vacations are a crucial part of life. So combining music and a vacation is pretty key.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you, since we last did the thing together at the Grammy Museum, which was great. It was really good. And you guys got to play in there. And I like the fact that you guys got to play loud. I mean, you guys got to rock out, which was really cool. And I was glad I got to do that event with you. And one question I have for you, because everybody's been so busy, has there been any working on new songs, any writing? Has that been a hard situation because of everybody having to take care of families and being just,
Yeah, I think I've just been hunkered down in family mode so much, but I always get little ideas down. My music memos app in my phone is full of little ideas, and me and Peanut worked on a song, sending some stuff back and forth, but it's just been such an upheaval that it was really just time to kind of circle the wagons and get through this pandemic. But fortunately, the band's going again with these streaming shows, but I haven't been working on a ton of new music. I think it's important to not be productive all the time. You have to kind of retreat and let the ideas build up, and then you'll have those kind of epiphanies like, okay, here's where to go next. So I think bands go through an ebb and flow where we actually, between the last 3 albums, we were putting out albums pretty quickly. And so it's kind of a time to just kind of take stock and wait to see where the muse leads us next.
And I also think it's probably true that because it's comforting for the bands to hear the songs that they love by you. That's another thing. I mean, that's why it's so cool that you're doing the first 3 albums, or that you already did one.
Trip down memory lane.
It's just one of those things that, again, people find so much comfort in music too. You know what I mean? It's just that soothing thing, the thing that makes you want to do so many different things. So I think it's cool. Yeah. And when the time is right, you guys will work on new material as well.
Absolutely.
Does it blow your mind how long the band's been together now, over 30 years, and the fact that you guys have been a unit with the original members for that long? I mean, besides U2 and Radiohead, they're really, I don't know many other bands.
We're in the top, 5 or 10 of longest original lineup bands for sure. And, I think that's just a testament that we know that we've stumbled on something really special. We keep an attitude of gratitude. We take care of it. We respect democracy. And you got to be willing to, be flexible, compromise, not get your way. Those are key to longevity, whether it's a band or a marriage or a business or whatever. People have to work on their side of the street, and, but it's just such a special thing, that we stumbled on. So you take good care of it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the box set, because that was an incredible undertaking. Talk to me about that when it came time to start going through all that old stuff. And
it was kind of something that we'd been kicking around for a while as a way to commemorate 25 years.
Yeah.
And then, we called it Archive with Hive in bold, because that's the name of our studio. The name of our studio came about because back in 1994, there was a lot of, in hip hop, they would say it's the go for self era. And I was like, okay, but now it's 95 and we go for the Hive, which is more of like a communal, and so that became a song, Hive, on our self-titled album. And then we named our studio that. So it's just always kind of been in the nomenclature of our fan base. So it's called Archive, and it has demos, B-sides, rare tracks. And it's just something that, me being a super fan of music, like I had every single Clash release that I could get my hand, bootlegs of them playing live, all kinds of stuff. So we wanted to fulfill that for that kind of small number of fans that really want every note we've ever played. So it was cool to finally be able to get that done.
Yeah, and people loved it. So was it was it wasn't it one member of the band in particular kind of like oversaw it?
Yeah, Chad is sort of
Chad
our
was-
archivist.
Yeah.
You know, he's got all these hard drives and tapes and everything. So everyone was just like, get it into one place, and he'll go through it along with our mastering guy, Joe Gasswort, who's mastered a lot of our albums. And I mean, it's quite a task to make everything sound balanced when it was recorded in so many different ways, from tapes to early tiny little tape machines, to ADATs and fully digital. And so to make it all sound cohesive was, you know, a lot of work, and came out real good.
Yeah, I mean, it really did. Doesn't it blow your mind sometimes when you look and you hear stories about something like Led Zeppelin 2, where the band was on tour and they were going in and out of studios all over America recording, and here's Jimmy Page carrying these masters, and it sounds like one cohesive record.
Yeah.
Right?
and just how they would have that magic of getting like, you know, when the levee breaks drum sound that just happened to be because they were recording in this really echoey, was it a living room or something?
Yeah, it was like that house that it was like it was that Headley Grange or whatever it was called, and it was like the you know,
so distinct.
It was so cool because they had held the microphone like down from the balcony or whatever.
Yeah.
Drums are down. It's just incredible. So
yeah, I love hearing about those.
Those are such great rock and roll stories about how people record.
Yeah.
And come up with those incredible sounds.
I mean, our second album, Grassroots, was recorded mostly in our little house in Van Nuys. So I can really hear that room sound of like my voice bouncing off the hardwood floors, and the sound of the guitar has this kind of early reflection that gives it such a distinct sound. That album, Chad did the drums in a real studio, but everything else was done in.
Where did he do the drums? In Sound City, like right by there, or was it somewhere else? Because it's funny you say Van Nuys, and that's where Sound City was, right?
Yeah.
Back, and it was still going.
We did From Chaos at Sound City, definitely, but I can't remember where he.
But then the rest of it all being done in the house.
Yeah.
When you told the label you were going to do that, you know, some labels are like, "Oh, were they like? Did they think that was a great idea, and they were encouraging you at that period of time?"
Yeah. I mean, we were still working with Eddie Offord, our first producer.
Yeah.
And we were just letting him lead this crazy idea of like, we'll have these Neve strips to, you know, be to be the preamps, and all we needed these ADATs, and like we just trusted him because he's such an old school producer with, you know, from his prog rock days and stuff. So it was cool because we got to start experimenting. I mean, if you listen, like hear like the samples, and like if you listen to Omaha Styley, there's a lot of experimentation on that album.
Yeah.
So we made sure we had the time to tinker because it was at our house.
Yeah, we weren't punching a clock in the studio.
Yeah.
Omaha Styley was such a great when that first came out too. Pretty amazing. Eddie Offord, you know, for those people that are watching us, he produced those still great sounding Yes albums, like the Yes album and Fragile and Close to the Edge. I mean, that guy had incredible. He those records still sound so strong.
Yeah.
And so do your first two records. You know what I mean? It's just incredible. You know, Eddie, he had something happen, I think.
He kind of went off the deep end towards during the making of Grassroots, but you know, overall we were glad to have crossed paths with him, and he just brought such a wealth of knowledge and experience to us, and also taking us under his wing to do the first, like when we first got to LA, he had gotten a tape of our demo albums from Omaha, and he was like, I'm going to bring you into Cherokee Studios, where they've had, I mean, so many classic albums, like, you know, Stevie Wonder, and just, I mean, classic Hollywood studio. And then to get in there and hear we did Freak Out and Do You Right in a big studio, and to hear him produce us, it was so cool. So we were very fortunate to all this just come straight from Omaha into like
hear the sound on that. Yeah, because Do You Right was the first single.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah,
we played the hell out of it, and it's such a great song. And right, and it was really punchy and alive, and it's a sound that he got from that.
Yeah.
You know, is it fun? So when it comes to Grassroots and this next live stream, are there songs that you haven't done in a long time on there in particular that you had to rehearse again?
The song Grassroots that was the first song that we wrote for that album. And we had actually played that on the music tour. It was like our one preview of what's coming next. But if you listen to it, it has so many different sections and really kind of sophisticated jazz chords so it's a pretty tricky song. So that one and maybe the song 6, we probably play a little less. So, that'll take some rehearsal to get ready for those. But any of those early albums we played a lot. So it's kind of just like riding a bike.
Right. It is because at that point it was that was your body of work, right? Your catalog. So it's as you get further on with the records, right? That you're like, well, we haven't done this one before. So I guess those are some of the things that come out during the 311 day, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. So Nick, I want to talk to you about some of your favorite albums. One of the things that we do here on In a Lonely Place, because that's, I think, what a lot of us do. Certainly, we do it anyway. We love the records that we love, but during those periods of isolation and when the pandemic first took place, what do you go to? You go to some of your favorite records, or you think about those records that had such a big impact on your life, and they're important. So
it's like comfort food.
It is. Absolutely. Now let's talk about the first album that you picked, which is Bad Brains, Quickness, which was their 4th album. It came out back in 1989. Yeah, aren't they? It's amazing to see how those guys have changed over the years. And, I've been on a couple stages with HR, New York City at Bowery Electric with like Jesse Malin and a bunch of guys. And oh my God, HR is such a character.
Yeah.
But if you look at the footage of him doing like Pay to Come and the early stuff, he's like pogoing, you know what I mean? It flips in the air. It's amazing.
But both Eye Against Eye, the previous album to this, and Quickness were so pivotal in my development to hear punk rock energy, but played with precision, and just the mixture. They had some reggae in there, and the production that Ron St. Germain did was like, we were just like, one day maybe we'll get to work with him. And I talked to Ron St. about this, like Eye Against Eye, it's a little thin, like it's like a Treble Rebel album, but this album is sonically perfect, but the songs are great on both of those albums. And to hear from Ron St. Germain about how, like on Eye Against Eye, the song Sacred Love was recorded while HR was in jail, recorded over the phone, and Ron St. Germain telling us about how he figured out how to record over the phone, so they could finish the last song on the album. And but he is a sonic master, and so because of this music, it was our lifelong goal to work with Saint. So then when we got to work with him on the Blue Album was pretty amazing. And then again on From Chaos, and we've had a long, good relationship, and fortunately he still to this day always comes out when we're in Jersey. And so
Jersey,
nice.
A good Jersey guy. He was definitely at some of those shows, which I thought was so cool, But that's a great story. But the fact that you're like, I want to work with that guy one day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he had a lot of great stories about HR, guys, because they're just some classics,
Yeah, just picking his brain was so much fun.
That's great. Now, the next album you picked was Bob Marley and the Wailers, which is the album known as Kaya, which was the 10th album that they did together. That's how many records the Wailers did. It's amazing.
Yeah, usually for most of these albums, I picked kind of a earlier in the development period, but Kaya, it just seems like such a zen, relaxing, like the song Easy Skanking. It just puts me in a meditation that it feels so good. And the use of reverb and the atmosphere that they create, and the way You're Running Away, this song called You're Running Away, he starts like talking in your ear, and this, you must have done something like, it's just it just blows my mind. And it's pretty beautiful that he was able to do such a great album 10 albums in. You know what I mean? I have such respect for people that had such a prolific career, because some people just need to create. It's like, you just have to do it. You don't pick become a musician. Music picks you, and you just have to do it. So yeah, this was a pivotal album to get high to, and just be transported to a different place
and hang with it. Yeah. And Is This Love's on there. There's some great songs on that record. Absolutely. It's just amazing. His body of work. It's just so incredible. No doubt. Now, the next record is from a band that we both love, and who have actually played one of the 311 cruises. And we're talking about our friends Angelo Moore and Fishbone. This album, Truth and Soul, is such a great record with its Curtis Mayfield cover of Freddie's Dead and Ma and Pa and all that stuff. So I love those songs. Tell me about why this album is one of your favorites.
To me, it's kind of like that place where they still had this crazy youthful energy, but their chops and production and everything had also got to its zenith. Like, this to me is a perfect album, and just such strong melodies. Chris Dowd, the keyboardist, who's become a really good friend of mine, is such a great writer as well as a great keyboardist, and his vocals on this album and the one after that are some of my favorite, because he's got a similar range to me, so I would use it like as a warm-up song. But then just to get to see them and how berserk they would go live and still sound good, even though it was this complete cacophony. And then now to know that they have managed to get the original lineup back together, and to come on our cruise. And then they even got one more original. I think they have the full original lineup that I was just texting with Chris Dowd about. So that's a band that was hugely influential on so many artists and kind of underappreciated.
I agree with you there, because this record's a classic. It's one that definitely
David Kahn's production, I think, was this one.
Yeah, and David Kahn produced so many great things back in that era. You know, whether it was a band like Translator, and then he had big hits like the Bangles, right? But he did so many great things. You know, was really a talented producer. I love the next record you picked too. It was the second album from New York rap legends Public Enemy. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. What great tracks on here, like Bring the Noise. And stuff about it.
I mean, it was a revolutionary production style. To have it be so densely layered with samples, yet still cohesive to listen to. And honestly, I think I was exposed to a whole new way of looking at things because of Chuck D's lyrics, and to understand, a culture that I had not really understood before. Like he's such a prophet, Chuck D is so amazing. And then also like the way they would bring in rock to like a song like She Watched Channel Zero, like that is a song that we've kind of 311 has like, we've done some similar things to that song, because it was just, I think is it a Slayer sample or something?
But and it's great. It just, the first time I heard that, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Because that song's totally
revolutionary.
Yeah. She Watched Channel Zero was the first song that I grabbed a hold of on the record. You know what I mean? That was because it was that perfect mix of rock and rap there. It was so good. Yeah. And they were totally pioneers. There's no question about it. And Chuck D's still doing it too, man. Yeah. Such a great guy.
I had a great time listening to his story of the Clash on Spotify podcast, of telling the whole story of the Clash. Chuck D telling it was really cool.
Yeah. Because you're a huge Clash fan like me.
Absolutely.
I was lucky enough to see them 4 times, which was really cool.
That's amazing.
Was great. And the next record you picked is a great Chili Peppers record. Red Hot Chili Peppers, The Uplift Mofo Party Plan. It's the last record with Hillel Slovak too. Yeah. And I tell people this, I did one of the last ever interviews with him before he passed away, with him and Anthony in New Jersey at that radio station you visited years ago. And it was sad when we lost him. Of course, it changed direction with Frusciante, and he saved the band basically by joining everything. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some other parts without a question, but this is a great underappreciated record, I think, in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. I mean, but in the underground at the time, it had such a buzz, but it was so underground. And, I got a tape of this album when it first came out, and my mind was so blown that you could combine this heart. I always loved funk, but I'd never heard it done with a punk rock intensity, and just the way they kind of glorify each other, the way, like Me and My Friends, he raps about his experience with his friends and the hijinks that they get into. And I think that's something that we were influenced by a lot. And then, so I graduated early from high school and came out here by myself first. And I got a job at the Guitar Center Hollywood. And then in walks 3 of them, and to get to tell them, like, I've gotten good at the bass by learning your songs, Flea. And Anthony was like, well, Flea did the same thing with Led Zeppelin albums. And just to get to meet them was so incredible. And of course, Hillel was very big creative talent. And then I got to see the very first show that they did with Frusciante at the Roxy. And he was just a kid with a mohawk. And he was like, that guy's my age. I was crazy. But yeah, this is a very pivotal band. So to get to play the big New Year's of 2000 to open for the Chili Peppers at the Forum, as it went from 1999 to 2000, was like, because they were such heroes of mine, to get to spend that special night opening for them was like, I was like, yes.
That must have been an incredible show.
Yeah.
I wasn't on this coast then, but I would have loved to have seen that show.
The Forum has so much history with the Lakers and everything for them. So,
and so many great live albums were recorded at the Forum too, which is amazing. But songs on there like, Behind the Sun, like you said, me. I love that me and my friends.
Backwoods, like it's the funky bass is just, it's so nasty. I just blew my mind.
Right, yeah, and even that Subterranean Homesick Blues cover is so good on there. I just love this whole record. Again, underappreciated. It's
Fight Like a Brave. So many good songs.
That was a great single for them. That was when they started to get more.
And
airplay.
Michael Beinhorn producing, right? Who really pushed them a lot.
Yeah.
Like their production on the previous albums before this one was pretty hit and miss.
Yeah, because they had George Clinton do one, like Freaky Styley, right? You know what I mean? And they were kind of getting
this one is where they really found it.
And then he did, of course, Mother's Milk as well.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. Up next, you picked a great Smiths album. It's a compilation that was made originally only for America, called Louder Than Bombs, which is not only a great album name, but the songs on this record was a combined group of all these great English singles and B-sides that the band had put out. And they were one of those bands that their B-sides were as great as most people's A-sides, right? They were just their body of work.
I mean, going to high school in Omaha, I wasn't privy to that much information. I just thought this was a really long album, but I, learned later what you said, that it was this compilation. But just the diversity in such, they would do kind of punky sounds to just these really beautiful ballads. And then, I think when in high school, when you're feeling unsure of yourself and alienated, to have somebody with such vulnerable lyrics really appeals to a side of you. So I've always tried to have that kind of same vulnerability to talk about things that might embarrass me or whatever, because I know how much I related with it, with Morrissey's lyrics, and also the fact that he's a baritone that has my same range. So I would just sing my heart out to these songs. Like I, definitely worked on my chops from singing along with Smith's albums. So
that's great. And it's such a good one too. I mean, like you said, diversity on the record, beautiful songs like Asleep and Half a Person. And then, things that rock like that song London, but like almost metal, like guitar part from Johnny Marr.
Yeah.
So good.
It's like Queen kind of.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's really great stuff. Yeah. That's cool. I would love to see you cover a Smith song. That would be amazing.
Yeah, we did The Cure, so we probably should do the Smiths too.
Yeah, exactly. And you, by the way, did such a great version of Love Song, which became equally as popular. Was that exciting? Did you ever get to meet Robert Smith and talk to him about
We
it?
had their long time, their bass player was in our video for the song, and then we had heard that Robert Smith liked what we did with it. So I mean, because some people had said, "Hey, the Cure, you can't cover them, that's sacrilege." And we're like, "Oh, Robert Smith gave it the thumbs up, so we're fine."
And you did it cool because you did it in your own way. I mean,
well, it was, and I have to give Adam Sandler credit for that, because he was like, "I love your song Amber, and I want that warm reggae sound for my movie 51st." It was called 51st Kisses, and then they changed the name to 51st Dates because that tested better in focus groups. But he was like, I want you to do this Cure song in your style of Amber. So I was like, can do. And I was on tour. We were on tour at the time, but I luckily had converted the bus to have a studio on the bus. So there was 5 songs that I produced for that 51st Dates soundtrack, and they were all done on the bus. And even everything on Love Song was done. Like, we recorded the drums at soundcheck in some club, maybe the Electric Factory or something.
Yeah. Oh, in Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Wow. That's amazing. And then, but it sounds so good.
Yeah.
It sounds, that's the amazing thing that you can do that on a tour bus now, that you can.
Yeah. Now it's tiny. You do it on your iPad if you want to.
Exactly. It's great. Now, up next, we have The Clash, London Calling, one of the greatest records ever recorded. No question about it.
Absolutely.
From the iconic cover. And by the way, I was at that show. I saw that happen live.
Oh my God.
I was in the back on the floor at the New York Palladium. And I remember standing I was on the other side, Mick Jones' side, and just looking and going, wow, man, he just smashed me. It's almost like Townsend in The Who. And then I thought about it later, and I'm like, wow, and look how iconic that moment
Such a
became.
lucky photo to get him right in that. And my mom had the Elvis Presley album that had this same, where they got this idea. It said Elvis in pink and Presley in green.
Yeah.
So to know the backstory of it. But this is an example of when a band has found that perfect zenith, that they still have that youthful energy, but they've got their chops down from touring.
Yeah.
And before we were taping, we were talking about the song "The Right Profile," about this tale about Montgomery Cliff, who got into a terrible car accident, and so he could only be shot from the right profile because half of his face was mangled. And then I was such a aficionado on The Clash that I had every release that they had, including the bootlegs, and I had a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I would put on a 15-hour show of me DJing and reading from these Clash kind of fanzines about all the facts that I knew about every single song. And I don't think I ever even listened to it, but just making it to put the entire discography on a reel-to-reel. And the very first band that I had was called The Right Profile. And it was just, and the first songs that I ever performed live was Police and Thieves and Protex Blue and Should I Stay or Should I Go at a talent show. And then for that one, we called ourselves a tribute to The Clash, but the music teacher was like, I just like The Clash, so you're just going to be called The Clash. So the first gig I did was called The Clash. So I got a chance to tell Joe Strummer all this later when we recorded a song for the South Park soundtrack. And I know I'm going on and on about
no,
The Clash,
but this is great. We want to hear this. I love this.
Definitely. Once I was invited to this was probably 97, and I got invited to this dinner hang in the Hollywood Hills, and they said Joe Strummer is going to be there at this. Is this guy that's been managing Joe is it's his house. And when I first walked in, I heard this like cool, like Cuban music playing from this boombox. And I was just kind of grooving, looking over. And then it had this little alien sticker. And I was like, that's our sticker. Because we had this sticker pack that was a 311 logo and 5 little aliens. And I was like, our sticker's on this boombox. And this guy was like, oh yeah, that's Joe's boombox. So pretty much my entire life was validated at that moment to know that Joe Strummer had put our sticker on his boom. And he also had a Fender sticker. So Fender sticker and 311, and had the little aliens on this boombox. And the boombox was such a big part of their iconography, and like they always had them in the videos and the photo shoots and stuff like that. So I mean, that was just so validating for me to hang with him, and we drank tons of wine and smoked weed, and just he told me so many stories. He told me he said, learn your family tree. As you get older, you're going to want to know the stories of like your grandparents and everything that happened. So I, really took that to heart. And just telling me the real story of like, what happened? Why did the Clash break up? And he was like, well, this manager told me to go disappear in Paris for a few weeks. And then I did it, and I came back and there was no more band. So just to hang with Joe it just validated so much of my experience. So I'm very happy about that.
And you did tell him that story about being the Clash.
Yeah.
And I bet he loved it. Right?
Oh yeah. I said, well, I had a whole wall in my room dedicated to them with all the album covers, because I just love to look at their stuff. So it was like, I told him all about that and how I was the number one Clash fan.
Yeah, he must have loved that. What a gentleman. And, to die at 50 was so sad.
Yeah.
It was a hard issue, Yeah, and it was a hard issue. I mean, that they would have gotten back together. The Clash would have reformed. There was no question in my mind that we would have gotten some Clash shows.
I think so.
And where other bands, like, will never reform. Smith's probably not, the Jam probably not, but the Clash would have reformed. I think they could have buried, everything would have been cool.
He told me, he said, immigrants, man, that, the original Clash was made of kids of immigrants, and the fact that his dad lived in Greece and stuff, and Mick Jones, and there was this kind of immigrant mismatch. He said, for the later version of the Clash, I got these guys that they looked right and they could play right, but they didn't have that same soul as the immigrants in the original Clash lineup. So it's fun to get those little tidbits from him.
Yeah, I think it's a great story. Those are such great stories. And, I think I'll just quickly mention too, a lot of people don't realize that because of their cover of Police and Thieves, which was a pretty current song when they recorded it by Junior Mervin, because they did that on their first record, that inspired Elvis Costello to write Watching the Detectives, and the Police to write Roxanne and Can't Stand Losing You. So it's like
the family tree.
You think it's amazing, right? It's incredible. So how important are the Clash? Yeah. Nick, let's talk about the 30 Years of 311 webisode series that you guys have done. I want to talk to you about that.
I just got to give props to management for just putting together these little mini docs about it. And it's just cool to sit back and see what has formed up around us, just from 5 friends making music as a hobby to turn into such a worldwide family is quite an honor. And along those same lines, a group of fans made a book like a coffee table book of their experiences with 311 and gave us copies of it at 311 Day this year. So it's just, it's good to take stock and look back at 30 years and would have these kind of things.
Yeah, it was great. It was when the guys called me, I shot my congratulations on 30 years, you guys, while I was in treatment. But I made sure I could do it. I was okay to do it. But
there you go.
I was taking care of my business, taking care of myself. Right. And I'm feeling great, by the way. And as you can see that I've been
absolutely you look fit, working out.
Yeah, it's great. I'm really happy that you can make it. So for 2021, depending on where things go with the pandemic, is there you were planning on traveling literally the world and going pretty much to every country.
Well, this year we were supposed to do 50 dates in 50 states as a way to commemorate, get them all in 1 year. So it was a real bummer that we didn't get to do that, but the unity will prevail, and we just have to play it by ear to see what happens with live shows. And obviously we'll be, first in line to do it when it's possible. But, I'm always optimistic. So I think that whether it's having outdoor shows or a little bit more space between the people or whatever, there's got to be a way.
There's going to be a way. And I think they'll figure it out. No question about it, and your shows will be as packed as ever and continue on with more and more generations of younger people discovering the band. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, Nick. I got to give that to the band. And,
thank you.
And also, literally to celebrate your friendship with the other members, because it's so obvious that it's still there. It's real. It's not forced. It's just it's a great thing to see.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we have so many inside jokes in the band because we've had so many crazy experiences and met so many crazy people in the wild partying days of the old days. Like we can just, if you just say like some little phrase, like we say sailor's wife, and it reminds us of this fan that was like stalking us that we called sailor's wife for some reason, but just like we have so many little triggers for insider jokes that we have, and it's great to have that kind of history
and build that up over all these years, right? Yeah. It's amazing. Nick, I got to thank you for coming today. It was so great to have you on the show.
Thanks for carrying the torch of rock and roll, man. Yeah. You are appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Nick. And I appreciate you. And I just want to let everybody know that, well, you got to check it out. December 11th, it's coming right up. It's coming. Actually, which camera? Should I look at this one or that one, guys? That one. Okay, cool. So that's how real and live this show is, guys. Okay, because we just moved into the studio here, but it's good. But anyway, so don't forget, and on December 11th, the band will be doing all of Grassroots, the second album, which is so cool, and that's coming right up. And then on January 11th, the 3/11s, the Blue album. Yeah. I mean, those are going to be great streams, and I'm looking forward to it. And do you think there'll be any more drive-in shows coming up sometime soon, or are you waiting to see where things go?
Yeah, well, it's not booked currently, but we enjoyed it, and we'll do whatever we can to stay connected with our peeps.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Nick, thanks so much for coming, man.
Good to see you.
It's great to see you. Anyway, I want to let you know, of course, if you missed any of our shows on In a Lonely Place, you can actually check them out at youtube.com/Rolling Live Studios for all our past episodes. There's been some incredible ones, just like the one we did with Nick today. And I want to thank you for watching and checking us out. Stay safe, stay sane, and remember, you're never alone if you got music in your life. I'm Matt Pinfield for In a Lonely Place, and I'll be back with you next week.